Frontier has recently showcased the Stormcast Eternals faction in their upcoming RTS game, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Realms of Ruin. Along with the faction reveal, they did a live stream where they shared some further detail, especially about their intricate animation system. One major example is procedural physics-based cloth simulation, resulting in no doubt epic capes and flags. Another sounded like interpolation systems that allow clean transitions between animation sets. Let's say ranged units can fire at an angle without the animators having to create the assets for all the different states and in-between points. And even the feet of characters will be following the terrain rather than blending into it. The devs clearly speak with great excitement over this kind of attention to detail. So let's hope it all works out, because it sounds amazing, if somewhat unexpected in an RTS. They are also doing a giveaway for a Realms of Ruin themed high-end PC. Link for this and the original videos in the description. Well, let's take a look at that faction reveal. Alrighty, I will be reacting to this and pausing where necessary. Game looks super clean and the animations are awesome. Everything's very readable.
Stormcast Eternals are mortal heroes that have been transformed into supernatural warriors.
All this is cinematic stuff here, so this is not in-game graphics. Says pre-rendered, so keep that in mind.
The Forges of Azir, each the embodiment of Sigmar's storm. They are the God King's wrath made manifest, and they were created for one single purpose: outright war. While they may be few, when a Stormcast Eternal falls, they are brought back time and time again to fight anew. In Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Realms of Ruin, you will command the mighty Stormcast Eternals.
I suppose that there will be a mixture of these 2D art slide style cinematics as well as the full 3D ones. At least that is what this seems to be telegraphing here. Which is a good way to do things. I think it keeps the costs low, but still keeps the production value high. I like it.
In their quest to defend an ailing Dawnbringer settlement from unrelenting raids by the wicked and savage Orc Krulboys, Sigrun, commander of a detachment of Stormcast Eternals, embarks on a perilous mission to the wild and savage swamps of Gur. She seeks to obtain a great artifact,
which is a very standard kind of storyline. I mean, they already said in several interviews that they're not trying to really do anything more grand than what is expected with the story, but they're trying to do that part really well. What I'm not sure about here is, does that mean that it's only you playing as Stormcast Eternals versus the Orcs Krulboys in the campaign, or is there more to it? I guess it remains to be seen. They haven't yet revealed the other factions, but it very much sounds like it from the stuff that was said so far.
Will help them turn the tides against the Orc menace. The Stormcast Eternals are a robust, elite army that excel when fighting in a combined force of frontline fighters and ranged attackers.
Alright, a little bit of UI, and yeah, I mean, they're the high tier race, they're your Protoss of Age of Sigmar, really. Very interesting minimap if you take a quick look. So one thing I'll note again, as I think I did last time, is that the minimap, the active part of it, does not actually take up all the space that is available in the actual widget for it, which is always questionable. You'd ideally want to take the space in as much as possible and enlarge as much as possible so that you have the maximum amount of control over the minimap as a PC player. I assume a console player may not have full control over what they're doing on the minimap, but rather will have quick ways to navigate, which they're going to talk about later actually when it comes to controls. What we can also see here is a multi-selection of units and allowing you to quickly do sub-selection through them, But once again, there are no stats whatsoever being displayed. And as far as I'm aware, more of that will be shown later. All of the units have a little roll indicator over them. You can see that here. It kind of is reminiscent of, let's say, Total War and games like that. So your units will very clearly telegraph what they're for.
Their access to a variety of different troops and reliance on well-rounded forces requires a hefty investment of resources to hold their ground. The steadfast Stormcast Eternal heroes have abilities to heal and resurrect fallen units, or lead from the front with devastating charges and powers that call down the storm to obliterate enemies.
About the resummoning of units that have been defeated, or resurrection, or whatever you want to call it, I'm actually not sure if that's super lore friendly to place on heroes. I think the Great Book of Grudges channel, Nate there, also has commented on this, and as far as I'm aware, that might not be how this should be done, maybe, but it certainly is fun in gameplay. There's absolutely no argument against that. It's a super high value ability, and obviously any storm-like clap on the ground is going to make a lot of sense for this faction. Oh, more UI here. Okay. This is interesting because now we can see all the units that we have access to. Clearly this is a multiplayer map, which is perfectly mirrored in every way. Yeah, even the chasms are perfectly mirrored, essentially, with minor differences on both sides. So this is going to be a very clean multiplayer experience like that. I must say, Frontier must have done a great job there. It is very laney, however. So if we're taking a close look, you got essentially 4 lanes to use, which does mean that you don't spread out the combat very much. And that could be a bit of a concern in terms of having the ability to surprise the opposing player. There's not a whole lot of units available. That's my other concern. This must be a hero, limit 1 out of 1. Then we've got the Ballista, which, once again, it doesn't show a whole lot of stats. Health 0? What? That's strange. Build time, cost, population cost. Yeah, everything's as you might expect, but that's a very small roster. So I'm wondering, since this is an alpha footage, are there going to be more units, or are they actually showing the entirety of the Stormcast Eternals right now? Because if this is it, that's a little bit underwhelming. But then again, we've seen the Dragon Rider dude, and I think none of these might be it. So, while you can't yet make the units, maybe you have to research them to gain access, and then there will be more? We're going to find out. There's also an obvious queue system, but they're locked? Do you have to research the ability to queue units? What? That's interesting, but we're going to find out more. There's a retreat ability they've spoken about in interviews, that yes, there is in fact a retreat ability that's reminiscent of the Dawn of War games, or, well, the Relic games in general, right? Company of Heroes also does this. You basically take your dudes and you run all the way back home. You can't interrupt it, but it is like a faster way to get your units to safety.
You'll have access to a wide range of units, including Annihilators, formidable and elite soldiers, emboldened by impervious thunderstrike armor,
Chonky boys,
and devastating meteoric hammers. Prosecutors, warrior heralds of Sigmar, who soar through the battlefield at incredible speeds, unhindered by the
That does not look fast to me. It was barely... Let's go back a second here. That looked barely faster
unhindered
than the dudes on the ground.
Swamps of Gur. And finally, the mighty Storm Drake Guard, dragon-riding knights capable of annihilating enemy hordes with lance, claw, and righteous wormflame.
Well, the good news is that these units were not showing up in the interface earlier, so we clearly don't have either of those two. So we don't have the prosecutors or the worm rider. We don't have either of those in here, so I assume my earlier assumption must be correct, that in fact you have to unlock them for them to show up in the squads menu, which is a little bit questionable. I always prefer when there's like a grayed out thingy or even that they are red, that you must research them first, some kind of indicator for that, because it tells the player, if they're new and don't yet know the faction, that, oh, these options are going to be available later, by the way, so go and research it. Could say so in the tooltip.
With lance, claw, and righteous wormflame.
Need my big AoE units. Love those.
Issuing the right commands is just as crucial as the squads you bring to the battlefield. When playing with a gamepad, you'll have access to an innovative control scheme that gives you the tactical flexibility you need to conquer your enemies. With the direct step system, you'll enjoy the immediacy of traditional real-time strategy controls mapped onto a controller.
Okay, let's stop here for a second. So basically what we've seen here is cute commands and the ability to hover over your units and have follow camera. Then they have also the ability to detach the camera from the followed unit and to essentially issue commands and draw these lines and make a queue out of them. This is nothing groundbreaking. The only difference really here is that they are detaching the centered nature of the cursor that you would have in other console RTS games. I'm not sure it's really all that innovative. You're not really giving new functionality with this. Queue systems exist in other games, and whether your camera is centered or not for that process doesn't really matter that much. It does make for a flashy viewing experience, though, I must add. But does it really change the way you play the game? I would say not.
Issue orders. Snap instantly between squad selections. And use a classic RTS camera view to survey distant forces and objectives.
Yeah, again, there's no new functionality here that is really groundbreaking. Everything has been done before, so I'm not really sure why this needs to be labeled and branded. It seems like marketing speak to me in practical terms. But it's well executed and it looks super clean. I think it will be a pleasure to spectate games with these camera controls, and I really hope that they do have a spectator mode, because this looks absolutely fantastic, and I'd love to host tournaments for something like this and to be able to deliver such a good viewing experience as shown in this little trailer bit. It's fantastic.
Then experience the pounding heart of battle up close and execute precise commands as the clash intensifies.
What's really good about the way that they do cute commands, however, is that there's these clear lines drawn that your units will be following, so you'll have a really good idea of what the command that you just gave is, whereas a lot of other games kind of struggle doing this or just don't do it straight up, which was actually one of the things that I really would have liked to see in Halo Wars 2. Never came to fruition, sadly, but yeah, this is nice.
Direct Step enables you to quickly respond to the conflict as it evolves. Activating squad abilities, creating groups of squads, and balancing a war across multiple...
Okay, group creation, it seems like they remain linked here. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to just select one of these dudes and then everybody in the group gets selected, or whether it's actually just a control group system and once again rebranded into something. I do think that the clip is a little bit too short for it.
fronts.
They're not really showing the interaction with the groups.
The Stormcast Eternals are just one of 4 factions coming to Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin.
And yeah, that's it. So yeah, pretty clean. Pretty clean. I'm liking it. I will add that despite my criticism around the presentation of the controls, They are in fact great, and should enable crossplay with keyboard and mouse versus controller to be a fair experience. This already was the case in Halo Wars 2, and that is a larger scale game with a much faster pacing. I just don't think anything groundbreaking was shown here to label the controls with a branded name. That's all. Supposedly soon we can also expect a similar reveal of the Orc Crew Boys faction, and then eventually there will be 2 more factions by the time the game releases. We also have the multiplayer beta to look forward to between July 7 and 10. Frontier intends for this to be a true beta, and they simply want players to try and break the game and offer feedback. This is a very healthy approach that I think more games need to adopt, as working with and listening to the community can definitely result in higher quality if given enough time. Hopefully this is not a one-off, and more betas will happen as further factions are added. This first one will only feature the Stormcast Eternals and the Orc Crew Boys. I will be live streaming on at least some of the days right here on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.